The outdoors is not a hobby. It's not our passion. It is our way of life. We can make the perfect cast, slow our breathing to execute a perfect shot, spend hours researching locations and techniques. Regardless of effort, we fail. This series is not about incredible bites. It's not about trophy animals. Our goal here at Day One Outdoors is to educate our viewers utilizing new technology to offer a different perspective. Watch as we research new areas, plan out the day, and adjust to changing conditions. If it were not for other experienced outdoorsmen teaching me along the way, I wouldn't have this life. I owe it to them to pass this knowledge along. I owe it to you. Join us here on Day One Outdoors, and let's learn how to become more successful in the field and on the water from day one. Waterfowl hunting continues to grow in popularity across our region. The Western Flyway funnels thousands upon thousands of ducks and geese right down the I-5 corridor. Dozens of duck species call the Pacific Northwest home. Each fall, hunters hit the fields and marshes with a decoy bag over their shoulder and a shotgun in hand. The majority of focus is on migrating mallards, pintail, and widgeon, among others. Yet, sea ducks are often lost in the fold. These speedsters offer hunters a new challenge, which we are taking on today. Join us as we learn from the experts and discover what it takes to be successful targeting sea ducks in the Northwest. Right now on Day One Outdoors. Today, we joined Kelly Barnum and Kelly Reardon from Seven Gill Outfitters to get down to basics and be successful targeting sea ducks in South Puget Sound.
It was actually really surprising that we just pull right out. We set the decoys, not more than 20, 30 yards off the side of the boats. We're not real camouflaged out in the boats, we're not really hiding, and the massive amount of sea ducks that would come around and constantly come into those decoys was just absolutely amazing. I don't know if it'd be a lack of intelligence or just they're so comfortable with boat traffic in that area, but it didn't seem like it was a real struggle to get birds to come into the decoys, where with puddle ducks and geese, it's almost like, there's so much art and expertise that goes into getting your decoys just right. That's the fun thing about the sea ducks hunt, is you can be a novice and be successful. So the clam farmers at Taylor Shellfish have been great for us. The sea ducks come in and they're all divers, and they dive into the clam beds, and they can eat actually up to half a pound of clams a day per duck. So for us to go out there and hunt these birds from the conservation standpoint of protecting their clams from the constant barrage of sea ducks eating them. So it's great for the clam farmers to use hunters to go out there and harvest these birds to help save their product and to give us a good time. It just works out. It's a great relationship. So Kelly Reardon is absolutely one of my best guys, and as far as waterfowl goes, the guy is top notch. And I don't get much time between running a construction company and outfitting business and everything else I do to get out and do a lot of hunting all the time. So to get out there with Kelly and get to enjoy this sea duck hunt and just the amount of birds and the amount of shooting that you get in is just absolutely unbelievable. My suggestion to everybody who books this hunt and gets out on the boat with us, wear a heavy coat, because you're gonna feel it in the morning. Sea ducking it's a real fun sport and real easy to get into because, a novice hunter can be successful, but it is fairly tricky with understanding regulations and locations and types of birds you can shoot and bag limits and all the things that go along with this fun sport we call hunting. So it's really important that maybe to get out your first time, you talk to a guide. We were fortunate to team up with one of my guides, Kelly, and we just had a fantastic day. Super knowledgeable guy, put us in the right spots, got us all set up, proper licenses, everything, so we were completely legit, nothing to worry about.
Two other local seasoned waterfowl hunters, Chris Urban and Mitch Myers, came along in an effort to truly dial in these finicky birds. Today, we started with an early morning minus tide, transitioning to a 15-foot incoming that will peak at 8:15 a.m. During the rest of our hunt, the tide will continue to run until just before 3 this afternoon. Sea ducks pattern their movements based upon tide changes and what food sources will be available during each change in the flow and depth of surrounding waters. To better understand what it takes to be successful as a newcomer to sea duck hunting, I asked our guide, Kelly Reardon, for advice.
I've always wanted to do it. I've never ever been out sea duck hunting before. Lots of waterfowl between the ducks and the geese, but sea duck hunting has always been just a bit intimidating. And truthfully, it's because I don't know even where to begin. I don't know the habitat. I don't know how to research, how to look up, where to find these birds. So could you possibly walk us through someone who's new to sea duck hunting? How would they get involved in it? How do they do the research, and what type of things should they be looking for?
Well, first off, habitat is the key to it. You're going to want to find clam beds and points, that's where the sea ducks are congregating, specifically the scoters. And also going out and actually doing the scouting. The internet searches aren't going to help you too much. Going out and actually finding these physical topographical points and then contacting local shellfish growers and finding where their clam beds are, that's a key food source for the scoters and the sea ducks, and that's what we're targeting.
Now, you mentioned the clam farmers out here. Are they willing to share this information with you? Do they want you out here?
Simply by calling them most of the time, they will actually often invite you to come out and hunt on their clam beds, because these sea ducks are targeting the immature clams that they're trying to raise commercially for resale.
Okay, interesting. Now, we saw a lot of different species of sea duck out here. How many different species are there out here, and what are the limits here in South Puget Sound?
The Department of Fish and Wildlife in Washington has some pretty strict limits on especially the scoter, the scaup, and the goldeneye species.
Okay.
I'm not really sure why the limits are so strict, but we go live by the rules that we have. And so for the 7 or so sea duck species that we have very tight limits of 2 birds, and 2 birds and done.
Gotcha. Now, we're talking about habitat and where to find these birds. We hunted a lot of different parts of the tide. Is tide a major part of how you plan out your hunt, or is it just get out there where the birds are, where the feed are, and they should be there as well?
Well, there's some truth to get out there where the birds are, where the feed are, but unfortunately we have to navigate in these tidal areas, and the tidal flows can change 10, 12, 15 feet. So yes, we do plan our hunts around the tides, because if you don't know where you're going at low tide, you're going to high center your boat, you're going to be stuck for a couple hours.
Sure, absolutely.
Our guides informed us that as the tide shifts, the ducks will begin to move. And they were right. The sky came alive with birds as they funneled through our area in groups ranging from 2 to 50 sea ducks at a time. But these birds are fast, and we were having a difficult time determining how much lead to give as each group decoyed in. After a number of misses, the guys had their sights set, and we were on target. Most of the time. Fishfield is your one-stop shop online for the gear you need here in the Pacific Northwest and beyond. From salmon and steelhead, saltwater, trout and kokanee, even crabbing. Visit fishfield.com today to place an order with no sales tax and have the gear you need shipped fast. Fishfield.com, we have what the Northwest outdoorsman needs.
Every once in a while, a new lure comes along that catches every angler's attention. It could be because of all the irresistible colors and finishes, or the patented skip beat action. Or maybe it's the wide variety of sizes designed for salmon, trout, walleye, steelhead, mackinaw, and more. But just for the record, we know one thing for certain. We didn't design the maglip to catch fishermen. Yakima Bait Company.
We are months away from the waterfowl season, but we are obviously talking about sea duck hunting in today's episode. And I have brought in Owen Hayes from Outdoor GPS, my fellow co-host, from the time that we worked together. And man, what a great time that was.
It was.
You know, I'll be the first to admit, I am not a waterfowl hunter. So who better to ask than our own Owen Hayes here from Comcast Sportsnet.
Well, I'll help any way I can.
And you know, Owen, looking at these birds and the footage we've seen so far, we've been shooting behind them the whole time. And I thought that the typical waterfowl gear and equipment would work out there. But obviously we're doing things wrong. So let's start by breaking down the gear and equipment and talk about what could hopefully make us more successful out there during this trip, especially coming into the season this fall. So let's start with choke tubes.
Perfect. That's a great place to start. Industry standard, and pretty much for all the higher end guns, they have notches. And you can see here, number of notches is going to tell you what that choke tube that you have in your gun or what you're about to put in will actually accomplish. So you always have to remember that you got lead and you got steel. All right. So lead actually shoots a lot tighter than steel does when it comes out of a choke tube, either a constriction choke tube or more of a notch style choke tube that'll stop the wad as it comes out, but
Sure.
different animal. So for steel, since you're hunting waterfowl, that's what you got to shoot. You can see here, if you got one notch for steel shot, you can see it doesn't even offer it because that's actually too tight. You wouldn't be able to shoot steel through that. So if you ever have a single notch on your choke tube and you're going to shoot steel, don't do it. You're going to plug it into your barrel. I've done it a few times. So you go right over. Your first one's going to be 2 notches, and that's going to get you a solid full. That's what that star is going to mean, is that it's going to be a very full choke. And technically, it'd be almost like shooting a turkey choke, and that's just too tight. You don't want to have that. Because if you do shoot too tight, it will blow your pattern out. Instead of being too wide and it scatters, it'll scatter itself on the inside and kind of knock all the pellets out. It sucks.
Interesting. Okay.
So most common for shooting ducks is 3 and 4 notches. Full choke for ducks that are moving quickly or high flyers, pass shooting, whatever it might be. And then modified is the most common because that's actually your even ground. There's a lot of people that shoot improved cylinder, which gives you a lot broader of a pattern, but sometimes not enough pellets to actually make a kill shot.
And you can find these notches right here on the exterior of your cylinder, just on the outside right here. And you'll see them lined up right next to each other. And in this case, for these sea ducks, we wanted a 3 or a 4-notch cylinder.
Yeah.
And Owen, you also mentioned that there's a few different types of choke tubes out there. What do you got in your hand?
Well, there's a couple different manufacturers. These are actually heavy shot tubes, and what they do is they actually distinguish them on the tubes themselves, where it'll say MR for mid-range and ER for extended range. This is what we would consider to be a full choke. If we were on a day just like what you were hunting, for sea ducks, you're generally shooting 30 to 40 yards for those birds, and they are flying. Well, obviously they're flying, but they're flying super fast.
Right.
So an extreme range would be the one that you would want to shoot. Tighter pattern.
Okay.
Your speed is always going to be the same. We'll talk about that later, but extreme range, that's basically just a tighter choke tube. It's designed for steel. Mid-range is what I shoot 99% of the time over decoys for puddle ducks.
Gotcha.
A couple things that folks need to remember too is that there's different types of choke tubes. You have constriction choke tubes like what these are from heavy shot, but you also have wad stripper types, and this is a pattern master.
Okay.
This is generally what I spend most of the time in my Beretta shotgun, and in my Benelli I shoot the heavy shot tubes. And the only reason why is once you pattern them, every shotgun's different.
Right.
And each tube in each shotgun's different. So by putting this tube in my Benelli, it doesn't pattern very well. You put this tube on my Beretta, it patterns perfect. So it all comes with going out, taking the time, and actually shooting that target so that you know what's going on. But again, there's lots of different ways to figure it out. Most common are going to be these notches. Along with that, other manufacturers are going to have different ways to distinguish that, and they say it right on the side. Sometimes they're etched in, or they just say it on the side, so when you pull your tubes to change them, you know what you're going to.
So you mentioned something important here about getting the right pattern.
Yeah.
And we just talked about choke tubes. Let's talk about what constitutes a good pattern. So let's start with, at our range that we were targeting these ducks in the 20 to 40 yard range, what type of pattern, where do we want the majority of our pellets going?
Well, obviously you want it to be, if this was the bird here, what you want to see at 40 yards is about 30 pellets in this zone at 40 yards. Now, you're going to have a pattern that's going to be all the way out here. And that's all scattered. That's just all pellets that aren't really obviously going to do anything for you. This is the zone in here that's really important. So you're going to want to see roughly 30 some odd pellets in this area Now you might only have 5 or 6 pellets that'll be actually in the kill zone. Some are going to be in the wing area or tail area, whatever it might be. But if you get 4 or 5 pellets in that kill zone, the bird's done. Rule of thumb again is 3 to 5 pellets, and you're going to take down a waterfowl bird. So it's generally that's what you're shooting for.
So Owen, we have our pattern dialed in. We know what we need, but we also need to discuss what makes the proper round to use out there for these birds.
Sure.
In most cases when I'm out there hunting waterfowl, I'm using a 3-inch number 4, possibly number 2s if they're reaching out a little bit further.
Sure.
But it seemed like in these birds, the number 4s didn't
Not
cut
enough.
it. Not even close. Like you said, they're ammo eaters.
Yeah.
And so let's break down what people are going to find on the box. So this obviously is just a diagram of what we're going to be using. You have a couple boxes in your hands, so we can break it down a bit more. But let's start out with the numbers and what they mean on a box of ammo.
Sure.
So when you're out there looking for your ammo for your shotgun, start by looking at these 4 or 5 numbers that are on every single box. Obviously, you want to match the gauge to your weapon. This is a 12 gauge here. And most guns will shoot a 2 3/4 or 3-inch round.
Right.
Now in this case, I personally would suggest using a 3-inch, and if your gun shoots it, even a 3.5. Now I know that that's more expensive, but it's more pellets.
It can be. Sometimes you end up with, the same amount of lead or same amount of steel in there, which is where, your ounce is going to tell you. Most common is 1 1/4 ounce 3-inch rounds, and they average between 1350 and 1450 feet per second.
Sure.
Right? So
Which
that's
is this number right here.
Yeah, that's your velocity. Very important. Now you can still get 3.5-inch rounds that will travel the same velocity with more pellets, where your ounces is going to be higher. The advantages with 3.5-inch is that you can actually get higher velocity with less amount of shot in there. You can actually have an 1.25 ounce, 3 1/4 round, and it's going to increase your speed because the 3.5-inch does have more powder, but velocity is what kills ducks. Velocity is the most important.
Absolutely. And you talked about what the ounce rating means right here, and that is what dictates how many pellets are actually in the round, correct?
Correct, yep.
And then that, of course, is based upon what size shot.
Yep. Larger the shot, fewer the pellets based on weight.
Right. And larger the shot, it actually works backwards in number. So if it's an 8 shot, smaller BBs, 1 shot a little bit larger, and then you even have your B, double B, and triple B shots.
Sure.
For these sea ducks, what would you suggest?
Probably, just because of the size of bird, I would probably shoot 2s or BBs. Now, if I shot BBs, I'd want a high weight. I'd want 1.5 maybe, because Heavy Shot does make that, and some of the other manufacturers that are out there. But you're getting a little. It's more important that you're putting your shot on target, but able to have enough pellets for that kill. 2s would probably be the perfect size, just because it'll accomplish a lot, and you actually end up with more BBs or more pellets that are actually in there. But 2s are probably perfect, and if I was struggling, meaning I'm getting hits, I know I'm taking feathers, I'm cutting the bird, and they're not coming down, that's when you want to increase the shot size up to a BB.
Well, Owen, thank you very much for coming in here and helping us out working with the Mondo pad. You really had some great insight for us, and I know it's going to better set us up for next season. But in the rest of this episode here, we're going to try and get them dialed in, hopefully get our lead a little bit better set out in front of them, because we're obviously shooting behind them. We're going to be missing a lot more the rest of the day, but we need to round out the limits. So, Owen, thank you very much for coming in.
You're very welcome, man. Practice. That's all it is.
That's what it takes. Folks, stay tuned. We'll be back in just a minute to finish out our sea duck hunt.
Salmon swim up to 3,000 miles to return to their exact place of birth to reproduce. Well, most of the time.
we were struggling would be an understatement.
Oh, did I miss that? Really?
We were burning through boxes of shells like there was no ammo shortage. But the birds kept coming, and it was only a matter of time before we adjusted our aim and began to have success. Although we had our fair share of misses, the crew was able to round out a limit. Identifying these birds can be difficult when flying in large flocks at high speeds.
Oh, hold up, do not shoot at those.
Fortunately, Kelly Reardon was our expert and guide to ensure we retained the proper number of each of the several species of sea ducks that inhabit South Puget Sound.
This is a scoter, one of the 3 species of scoter in Washington State. The surf scoter, which is this one. This is a drake, as told by the black body, the 2 white spots on the head, and the very vibrant, colorful bill. And the other species have white wings on them, like the white wing scoter. The surf scoter does not have any markings on it, and the black scoter actually has no markings on it at all, except the orange bill. Next up, we have the scaup. Some people call these bluebills. This is another one of the considered sea duck species in Washington. This one is actually it's a mature bird. It's got a pretty green head, vibrant blue bill, and this is a drake of the species. The hens of this species are a chocolate colored brown, and they have a little bit of white markings on their wings. They're white with gray, and the hens actually have the same marking on them, so the difference in the hens and the drakes is the chocolate coloration on the body. Next bird we have up in the sea duck species, this is a common goldeneye. This is actually a hen. She has a brown head on her, and this is actually a juvenile to teenage bird. There's 2 species of goldeneye in Washington State, the barrows and the common. The common goldeneye has a white circular patch just below the eye, where the barrows has a teardrop shape. And the difference is on the drakes of these, actually, the barrows goldeneye has broken white wing band, and the commons have a solid white wing band right there. But again, this is a hen, common goldeneye, so you don't see the banding on the wings. 4th bird we have in the list here isn't classified as a sea duck, and this is actually a very common diver in Washington State and actually across most of the Pacific Flyway. This is the bufflehead. This is a drake, as told by the black and white body and the iridescent green and purple head. The hens of the bufflehead are a chocolate brown to a black with only a small white patch on the head.
Kelly, thank you again for just a fantastic day out here. I gotta say, sea duck hunting was just a heck of a lot of fun. Completely different from what I've done with typical waterfowl, with ducks and geese. This is just an experience that I've never been able to have, and it's truthfully been because I've just been intimidated by getting out here and learning how to sea duck hunt. So coming out here with a guide like yourself, learning the ropes and being able to go out and put a pattern together by myself with me and my good hunting buddies, this is going to be a fantastic opportunity for us to broaden our horizons and get out there. So Kelly, thank you again, man.
Thanks.
I really do appreciate it.
Good to have you.
No. So the buffleheads were the small ones, right?
Smaller white and black ones.
I just You get that on camera?
Yes. Enjoy TV, buddy. Appreciate it.
Just
Enunciate.
slow it down a little bit, you got it, and we're done.
Human Torch was denied a bank loan.
Phenomena.